popular trend at the moment is to create these very geometrically balanced, attractive modern brand marks. As the example you can see on my screen. So that's what the next tip is going to show you, how you can use grids in Illustrator to easily create something like this. And because of the level of consistency it gives you, it's easy to explore different options and iterations. So to begin with, we're going to come back up to this, which is going to be a helpful reference. You need to make sure with a properties window twirled open, you have your grids visible. So you can see that now appears in the background. And then you need to have the snap option to grid toggled on. Now with that in place, and this is a reference, I'm going to show you how we can create a similar effect. And I'll just make sure I'm on an active layer. So consistency is key. You want to have some idea of what you're looking to create beforehand, whether that's a sketch or a rough draft. You could even create a letter in the background and perhaps put it to a layer and 12 the opacity down, just to give you some idea of what you're creating, some kind of path to follow. But whichever method you prefer, first of all, using the rectangle tool, I'm going to do the flat areas of this mark. And we want obviously the same starting point. And the trick is to make sure, and you could decide to use 2 squares on the grid or just 1. I'm going to use 1, but to keep it consistent. So our spacing between elements is always going to be 1 square. And the width is always going to be 1 square. So I'm just duplicating that across there. So there we have what's going to be the base of this mark, and we've created those vertical lines. And remember, having snap to grid on is essential. If I turn off snap to grid and we try to do the same, that may look right, but when you zoom in, you're going to notice it's not quite perfect. It's just gone over the guideline there. So please make sure you've got snap to grid safely turned on. Next, I'll do the, well actually before we do the horizontal lines, we really need these circles in place as a guide. So we'll use the ellipse tool. And you can see it starts from just 1 square to the right of this rightmost vertical line. So we want to use that as the anchor point, and we'll just click, hold Alt and drag to create our first ellipse. I'm going to deselect so I don't end up interfering with that shape. And then we'll click and drag again, and this time we want the width to span an extra square. So you can see that covers roughly 4 squares. And this next one is going to cover, well, 4 by 4. We'll deselect. I'm going to change the color here just so it makes it a little easier to track what we're doing. And I'm going to send that layer to the back. Deselect. We'll do the same again. And of course, if you wanted, you could copy and then transform. Send that to the back. Change the color. And so for this one, I'm going to copy. I'm going to paste at back, which is Control or Command B, and then I'll transform, holding Alt to transform from the center, change the color, and that's another way you can achieve this. So keep going, and it seems a little tedious at first, but ultimately this is giving you the framework for the shape you're going to create. So I'm going along, just transforming, keeping that anchor point the same each time. And we've now got these concentric circles that are exactly 1 square in width, because we've kept the anchor point consistent. And as we've increased it, each time we're snapping, to a square. So we're getting that level of consistency. Now already, perhaps you're thinking of some of the options this opens up when creating graphics. But next we're going to create the horizontal lines. So let's go back to the rectangle tool. And unfortunately the filled shapes are hiding the grid, but we've got snap to grid on. So we want to start from here and we'll drag. And you could go as far as you like with this, but to give us a crisp edge, we're going to snap it to there. So just 2 squares away from the edge. And then I will simply alt click and drag to duplicate that once, twice. And you can see that's going to form the top and rightmost edges of our shape. Lastly, to achieve this kind of effect here, we're going to take one of the circles. So let's take this one first. And we'll alt drag it down. Then take the next size down and position it in place. And that's going to give us the curve that we want to form this arm of the F. Move that a little further down. Of course, you could play with this afterwards if you wish. And then we'll just take a horizontal bar and position it in place. So we're mirroring the same effect we've got above. Now, the more you do this, the more you'll get used to kind of understanding and playing with this and the effect you're going to achieve in the end. But we now want to use a shape builder tool. So with this framework in place, we select all of the objects. And as you will have learnt in an earlier tip, if you press Shift M, that opens up Shape Builder. And we now, we'll take it just one line at a time, so it's easy to follow. We're going to click and we're going to start merging these shapes. You can do it in stages if you like, so that we create the lines we're looking for. So that's given us the outermost line. We'll now work another line in. And if your hand's not steady or you're worried you might go over, just do this in steps. And the next line in. And there you can see we've got these 3 lines that are going to form the base of our F mark. Now we just need one more, which is this one here. So for that, we need to be careful. So we need to make sure we start from a shape we can isolate. And we'll do that to merge those shapes there. Delete away the parts we don't need. And you can see we're left with that fabulous geometrically sound mark that we've created here. And how you choose to stylize this is completely up to you. I quite like to mirror this curve here to put a little shadow, which gives it an extra piece of perspective. So really how you choose to stylize it is up to you, but that tip gives you a great starting point. And what I really love about this Illustrator trick is that the possibilities are endless. It makes it so easy to create a range of marks where you want that geometric precision and where you want to quickly and easily construct something that perhaps has complex elements.